I feel like we're in this weird platformer purgatory right now. You know, on one hand, we got critical darlings like Astrobot and Donkey Kong Bonanza getting nominated for Game of the Year. But on the other hand, we just rarely get games like that anymore in comparison to realistic graphic stuff. So today I want to figure out, with a good friend of mine, what is the state of cartoon mascots and 3D platformers, and are there any hopeful signs of a return to form anytime soon? Joining me today to analyze the state of 3D platformers and cartoons and not cartoons, but cartoon mascots and whatnot, is a lovely buddy of mine who went to the Game Awards with me of 2024 and is a filmmaker and is a passionate gamer with one of the coolest backdrops I have seen. It is my friend, Sir Jason. Jason, hello. Thank you very much for joining me on Codename Goodgame. This is our first ever potential thing together.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you having me.
I'm very curious. So, Jason, nobody's ever met you. I know you. Again, we went to the Game Awards. I have, I think my favorite moment of the Game Awards with you is seeing your reaction to Harrison Ford coming on stage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got a little misty.
Misty.
I was excited about a great number of things actually during that Game Awards. I really enjoyed myself, and I appreciate the opportunity to be there with you live and witness all that transpired. It was great. It was a good show that year.
That was a good time, and I'm so glad that was the one that we went to. And just looking back, just high guard. we were talking last night about
watching the film this year, I didn't feel the same. I mean, it's different not being there. Obviously, it was far more impactful when you're, at the live event. But yeah, the high guard situation that confused me.
That's our one last thing. Jeff put a lot of money on that, man, and now here we are.
It was the Steve Jobs moment, and then a couple months later, that died.
Yeah. He literally put on Twitter like, "I'll accept your apologies in 48 hours."
Yeah.
But anyway. But yeah, Jason, this is Codename Goodgame, where I try to have I'm now structuring this around just a nice power hour of a conversation with peeps and hopefully a fun game at the end to end things on a high note. And I brought you here about these 3D platformers and whatnot because, well, Jason here, not only is he a friend of mine, but as I can make him full screen here, he is, he's a gamer. Looking at that, feel free to point around your background. I have you full screen or whatever, but and Jason had an amazing reaction to and just was the champion to Astrobot winning Game of the Year in 2024, and just that was please, that better win and whatnot. And another statement, Jason, that I will not forget is, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear I remember this message. I'm actually enjoying Donkey Kong Bonanza way more than Expedition 33. I could have swore.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, it's funny because I don't know if it's really platformers that I've always been into, but a lot of the ones that we've had recently that I've played, I've really enjoyed. I think it started with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. A few years back. I adored this. I thought it was a Pixar.
Did you have him ready? Show it up again?
Oh yeah. I brought. We were going to talk platformers, so I pulled out ones that I wanted to be sure to share. If you haven't, I'm telling you, if somebody hasn't tried this, you gotta make the time. It was phenomenal. It was just absolutely mind-blowingly great. And I don't know. I felt that was a kind of a return to form. To some of the stuff that I had enjoyed earlier in my life. And, I think Sony, in my opinion, kind of needed Astrobot because you mentioned these mascots or these cartoonish kind of characters or whatever that represent each of these, platforms. Sony, in my mind, I'm kind of an old fart, was Crash Bandicoot. And nowadays, Crash Bandicoot, Xbox owns Crash Bandicoot at this point. It's not really a utilized IP. It's very strange. So
that's something I definitely want to hit upon, by the way. So we're going to bookmark that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like where do these opportunities lie for these companies to create something that represents their brand? And Astrobot was I think it was it for them, for Sony. And I think you're going to see a lot more Astrobot related material coming from them. Another thing I really appreciated
you
with the game
think
was
so?
I think so.
Oh.
A thing that I really appreciated with that game was that the studio kept releasing more and more material for the game. Like
Oh,
downloadable
dude.
free levels and such. That all of them are just as good as the core game, in my opinion.
Which is so wild. Like, it's funny because usually I like to start these with like a bit of banter. I mostly brought those up to like just introduce as to why I have you on. But it's just like oh shit, we're just already rolling, so naturally. But
My bad.
It's true. No, you're good. Like because that's a good point of just like Astrobot. That is a crazy thing that they were just releasing. Like, yeah, we're just adding more to the game. Oh, does it cost anything? No, we just
They gave it away for free.
Like,
And I find that to be a remarkable thing, considering that like the studio Team Asobi was assembled from folks that they got rid of. They had closed down.
it was totally not necessary. Like, that's the thing. I don't want people to think like, oh, dang, we got to do that now. It's like, no, that was totally not necessary. Like it's like we would have understood if they charged for it. Totally.
Sure. It was worth something. It wasn't material that didn't have a value for sure. It was great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jason, I'm glad. Like that's I think that's a good underlying thing to the whole thing, and I'm super glad that we're gonna discuss essentially like a question that I'm really wondering is just, I don't know, I guess the shift to 3D platformers. But really quick, is there anything you've been playing or watching that you feel like you'd want to shout out or anything? Like, I don't know if gaming has been pretty slow for you lately, but for me, I'll just tell you right now, I was talking with a buddy this morning. He's like, what are you doing tonight? And I'm like, I might do everything in my power to beat Final Fantasy VII Remake. I have been playing that for the very first time. First time. And it's pretty incredible. I don't think it's like a masterpiece or anything like that, but it's pretty incredible. I have to admit. I'm like, I think there's a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans that should be mad at Square Enix because the quality, like the presentation of the game is so freaking good. And I'm just like, yeah, they need to put this effort into Kingdom Hearts. So, but yeah, it's great, man. I'm looking for, and one of the best soundtracks, period. I think I've ever heard. So,
yeah, have you ever played that? Beautiful. Oh yeah, I finished the first game. I haven't made it all the way through the second, and my understanding is, there's going to be 3. It's a lot of story that wasn't there, and that they're creating more story. It sort of like reminds me of the Hobbit trilogy or something. It's like, let's take one book and make it into a trilogy. A lot of material to get through, but it was beautifully done. I thought it was.
I do notice that, by the way. I think that's like one of my few cons with the game is that I definitely noticed the stretching out, because this is literally like the first maybe 1/6 of the original game, if that. So yeah. And I mean, you were talking about whether or not something's necessary. It feels like a lot of it isn't necessary. It might be fun for a while, but I'm kind of a fan of a get on the stage, do your thing, and get off the stage. I don't need 120 hours. Leave them wanting more. Them wanting more. Yeah. Yep. I agree. Yep. Anything you've been up to? So you mentioned Donkey Kong Bonanza earlier, and one of the things with that game, the reason that I was so enamored with it was because I was kind of addicted to it. There was this feedback loop of like you'd be digging and doing something, and then suddenly you would discover a banana or something else would happen, and then it just made you keep going. There's a game that's out right now that I'm not proud to admit, but I'm addicted to. This Pokemon Pokopia. Oh, you got it. Oh, that's right. I even did the physical copy, even though it's a key card situation. Sure. And now you can't even get them right now because apparently it is sold out globally. But Pokopia? Yeah, it's Pokopia. Holy shit. Tony, I'm addicted to this game. I feel like a chain-smoking old lady at a slot machine, like getting crack hits or something. I'm just like, I can't stop.
And what's phenomenal about it is it incorporates a lot of, the lore of Pokemon over the last, 30 years and what have you. There's this anticipatory feeling of like after you create, the little habitat for the Pokemon, there's even the three little, like, uh-oh, what's it going to be as it comes out of the grass? And there's just this
that's a fun aspect.
Anticipatory, oh yay, when whoever it is that pops out is somebody that you recognize and want to have in your little village. So I lost my.
Can I ask a question?
When Score Bunny showed up, yeah.
Is it like there's just one of that? Like each Pokemon is a character. Like there's not multiple Bulbasaurs, there's not multiple Squirtles or whatever.
Yes. What's weird about it is it's unlike other Pokemon games in that there aren't evolutions, but the evolutions of those Pokemon do show up as individual characters.
I love
one of the things that's actually pretty remarkable about it is that the characterization of each of them is differentiated, like to the nth degree. You like something like Animal Crossing, which I think that this game is very, similar to. It felt like maybe there were like 4 or 5 personality types that were just copy pasted across all of the little creatures that could end up in your town. All of these Pokemon have like completely different conversation trees and little mini missions that are inherent to them. Some of them give your character, you're a Ditto, different like abilities and such that allow you to progress through the game. But 9 times out of 10, I kind of just find myself going into this addictive little loop of like, I have my little list of things I want to do in the game, and I'm trying to get those things done. And then somebody comes over and asks for something else, and then I'm branching off. And, it's one of those situations kind of like in Breath of the Wild where it was like I had a mission, and now I just did 6 more things I didn't anticipate because everywhere I go, there's something really magical and fun happening around every corner. So really enjoying it.
Cool. I'm tempted by it because I haven't had I would put this in the cozy genre, whatever, but I do need something for my Switch 2, man. Like, I just feel like my Switch, that was a previous episode with me and Luan talked about, like, just like, what's Nintendo up to? And so that's just like a whole conversation, that's why we did one, like, not to plug in previous episode, but it's true. So, yeah, I'm glad that you're hitting that because I like hearing some people are hitting that and that they have something for the Switch 2. And it did look interesting to me, and I'm pretty impressed by how much praise it's getting, but so okay, I do want to hit the main topic though. Yes, it is. It's like the highest reviewed Pokemon I think I've ever or something. Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so I want to talk about the main topic being platformers, and at the end of this, we will potentially have a challenge, so to speak, to go over. But Jason, I want to figure out the state of 3D platformers. So. And I set it up at the beginning. That is basically, I do feel like purgatory is a good word for this. I think I did a video about the state of platformers like back in 2022 or 2021 because I thought it was really interesting to see a year that like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart and Psychonauts 2, they both got nominated for Game of the Year. And that kind of triggered ideas because honestly, at that time, I was like, yeah, we just kind of have moved on from 3D platformers, I feel like, when that used to take over the gaming landscape in a way. Like, they're around still, but it's just different. And that's kind of like the thing that, like, there's questions I got about, like, why does it feel that way? Or maybe why did realistic stuff take over and so on. And so maybe, Jason, I thought a neat setup to this would be, I guess I almost want to say missing 3D platformers, but also our brief history with them. Like, I could sort of go first here on this, where I wasn't super all over 3D platformers. If somebody asked me, what kind of guy are you, Tony? I'm a shooter MacGruber. Like, if I had to say I'm a shooter MacGruber, that has been me for like the past most part 20 years. But I've played a lot of different genres, but I definitely did enjoy my time with some 3D platformers, but funny enough, I enjoyed them more as an adult than I did as a kid, which is interesting. I think that's really interesting. I really, like you mentioned Rift Apart and Psychonauts 2 and Astrobot, and there's like I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit, but there's just been a lot of modern day platformers that I've resonated with, whereas as a kid, I think I just couldn't get it, like all the collectathons and the puzzles and whatnot. But yeah, it's just interesting how I've kind of developed to like them more growing up instead of aging out of them. Like I know even some people that have been on Codename Goodgame have said. So Jason, I don't know, like, so where do you sit with platformers, or maybe how you've aged on them over time, or just the cartoon mascot in general as well?
Well, yeah. I wonder, Tony, thinking about what you just said, though, about, you used to you didn't really gravitate toward them, in your youth, but as an adult, you're kind of like digging them all of a sudden. I wonder if that might be because of two things. One, maybe nostalgia for the time in which those were a more popular, genre of game. And then secondly, I would argue the possibility that they're slightly easier to control nowadays. I think that the control schemes
let me talk to you about Crimson Desert. Just kidding. Sorry, keep going.
Well, no, because arguably it was Mario 64 that obviously brought platforming into 3D space, and Nintendo, God bless them, they figured that out, and every subsequent game I feel has been built off of what they developed, utilizing at the time the best that they could do with a controller and controlling something in 3D, and with platformers though, nowadays I feel like there are a lot of them, but a lot of gamers don't necessarily recognize them as such. Things like what is it, Ori in the Blind Forest, or like Hollow Knight right now, Shovel Knight, from the indie scene a few years back. Like some of these things, they're platformers, but I don't know if people necessarily think of them in those terms. They just think of them as like, oh, it's a fun little video
I like
game.
that phrase. I don't know if they identify them as that. That's a good phrase. Yeah, sorry. Keep going. Yeah.
Well, no, with regard to, platformers as I see them, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like you mentioned with mascots for these companies. It's a great way for them to kind of present themselves, especially like the fun factor of what it is that they're providing that also differentiates them between the other publishers. So it's like, something like Ratchet and Clank I thought was phenomenal, but are Ratchet and Clank really, do they scream just Sony? I'm not sure. Whereas I thought Astrobot actually incorporated all of Sony's history very well in the Astrobot standalone game, and so it was heavily branded Sony. I would argue that there really wasn't a Sony character that you could point to other than
in terms of
Snake,
mascot, yeah,
or Kratos. Possibly,
I would say Kratos. I've debated about that with people, but yeah, there's not like an obvious Master Chief or Mario, and that's kind of the other half of this too. Is the lack of the faces. You mentioned Crash Bandicoot, who was a very iconic face 20 or so, more like maybe 25 years ago. And I think that's something that I definitely miss, is the lack of those iconic faces, because nowadays it's a lot of here's Ellie, here's Joel, and these like really realistic looking things that's kind of taken over, and because of that, it's like, yeah, these are very iconic characters. I just yesterday while I was working out, I watched this great video about Arthur Morgan and how he is like one of the best fictional characters ever. And I agree with that statement. But, he's a human. He's realistic. Humans can be iconic and everything, but I feel like that's something I miss, is just those very unique character designs that made the cartoony characters pretty iconic, is the word I keep coming back to. But
that and Arthur Morgan, I mean, yes, a great character, an amazing story, and that video game is like literally probably in my top 5, possibly top 3 of all time. Red Dead Redemption 2.
My boy, Jason,
phenomenal. My boy. It is phenomenal. Controls are a little difficult for me. I kept like punching people.
And I admit, an uphill climb. It's a bit of a slow uphill climb. I confess that. Yes. Yeah. But
it's a slow burn. The story it tells, though, is amazing. And the character is amazing. But arguably, you can't really take Arthur Morgan and plaster him up as like the character that represents, one of these publishers. Because again, he's kind of flawed and, a difficult, a difficult character. So, or Jin Sakai, there's another Sony game.
But are you getting at like there needed to be the representation? Because to me, it's more so just the design. I didn't need to necessarily make them the face of a company, but.
Well, you and I have spoken about something kind of related to the face of the company. I don't want to get off topic here, but Phil Spencer over at Xbox, before he departed a couple of years ago, said that exclusives were not, the path to success for one of these companies. And I would argue they are the only path to success, because if I want to play something, it's because I want to play that specific game. And if it's only available on that specific platform, then I'm going to cough up the bucks necessary to make sure I can have that experience. And some of these characters, if Mario was suddenly licensed and appearing on everybody's platform, the Mario is no longer special. And I want to play Mario. As much as I enjoyed, Donkey Kong Bonanza, I was surprised that they launched the Switch 2 without a Mario 3D game platformer.
Or even a 2D one.
Yeah. Just something. I mean, we just had Mario's anniversary here the other day, and what did they release? Something like a trailer for the movie. Like, okay.
2 directs for the movie.
Yeah, that's fun. I've seen enough of Chris Pratt. I want to see Mario himself.
Yeah. But there's an interesting point here, because like I do think it is somewhat of a sidebar, but like I look at things like Capcom, and Mega Man and Leon Kennedy, like those things are very like, you think Capcom, or Ryu from Street Fighter, you think Capcom, and that can happen, like a brand can have characters that are iconic to the brand, but like there's a whole conversation about the exclusive what. But in terms of like, kind of going back to what I was getting at is, I guess if I could simplify this question, I'm just like, what made realism take over? Because that's the thing. I feel like back in the day, we had so many characters, so many crazy things, Banjo, Mario, Sly, Gex, Conker, like it just kept going on and on and on. There was all these crazy, wacky cartoon characters, but now it's the sad dads and whatnot. But I don't know, like my answer to that is, I guess, like, it's okay. I have a very perfect story. I had my dad staying with me for a couple weeks, and he would watch me play some stuff. And whenever I was playing some like indie style game, or maybe low graphic one or whatever, he's like, how come you're not playing something super like realistic looking or whatever? And I'm just like, I feel like that is maybe I call it the 90%. There's the 10% that listen to IGN and whatnot, and then there's the 90% that buys Call of Duty every year. Like there's no discriminating or downplaying that, but I'm just saying that is a majority of the market. So I do wonder is that why realism took over? It's just because like, wow, look at how good that looks. Look at Crimson Desert. It looks insane. But if they see like, some 3D platformer, does it not tingle them? Or
well, arguably it's twofold, right? Like today's gaming market is predominantly dominated by folks like us of our age. We're gravitating towards, I guess, more adult oriented options. And the technology exists now where you can have, worlds that look far more photorealistic and characters that look more realistic. And so the realism factor has definitely taken over in that sense. But I don't know, man. There's just something about, the mythical mythology of fun, non-realistic characters that, again, I feel like these companies can use to brand themselves with that are memorable. I mean, you look at something like Xbox and you ask people, what's available on an Xbox, and of course, everybody mentions Halo, everybody mentions Master Chief, and that character was, written well and presented well, and it's memorable. And the reason why it's memorable is because it's pretty much one of the only things that they generated that is, and I feel like you need those in order to differentiate yourselves in the industry. And I think Nintendo obviously has succeeded with that through platformers, because that's a platformer is something that anybody, I feel, can kind of pick up and play and get a sense of from 8 to 80, and so that appeal I think is what brings people into gaming and also gaming together. So, but I get where your dad was coming from. It's like, are you going to play something that's a little bit more,
I put on Battlefield 6 and he was like, this is cool.
Yeah, I get it.
But no, that's a good point. Like that's somewhat like, okay, I had this question that I'm going to pull to now, because you bring up a good point of, just the appeal and the face. I would argue this is it. The face versus the game. Okay, that might sound vague, but hear me out. I wonder to really, because back then, I think to bring the realism part of it was back then that's all we could really do. You know, these cartoony characters required way less polygons to design them, but now, you know, we got way more, so we could actually make more realistic looking humans rather than Tifa and Lara Croft having triangles on their chest. So now we can make realistic humans, but I also wonder if platformers today, what makes them more, I don't know if appealing's the word, but I guess I wonder if platformers were to survive today, do they need a really iconic character? Like, let's say hypothetically there's a brand new platformer, totally new one, like not Mario, not Astro Bot, anything. Does it need to be a really iconic character, or does it need to be a very iconic world, or replace the word iconic with maybe a standout? Like this character really stands out. I like them. I want to see them in more stuff. Or is it like, oh, it's kind of an okay character, but the world is really cool? A good example of this, I think, is like It Takes Two. That's absolutely a platformer. I think it's an amazing platformer. I think Split Fiction is as well. But I think like those games, it's especially the kind of the world that stood out more than the characters. When I think of those games, I don't think of the characters. I think of like the experience it was. And but then there's another one called,
that would be like Psychonauts. Like I enjoyed the game, but right now in this moment, I don't know if I could name the character.
Yeah, Rasputin. Yeah. Yeah, I think his design is very like good, but you're right. Like I think that's somewhat a good example too of like that game's design and level design is like peak to me, but I don't know if I would think of Rasputin as a very like memorable character per se. I'm actually split about that, honestly. I like Rasputin, but so I guess that's the question of like, you know, thinking of It Takes Two maybe as the example. Like, do you want the more 3D platformer, or do you want the more iconic character? Or
you know, well, with 3D platforming, what's interesting about that to me, what you just mentioned, were two games that are collaborative, they're cooperative play. Whereas most of the time when I played a 3D platformer, it's a, you know, one-man band situation where I'm by myself. And I kind of favor that kind of gameplay, because ordinarily in platformers, especially like the newer 2D Marios and such, you're constantly frustratingly, you know, fighting the other people that you're playing with for like screen space, or they're falling off something, or they're not catching up to you, and it, you know, it kind of leads to frustration of what's everybody trying to do on the screen at once. Whereas, you know, something like a 3D platformer like Mario, you know, nowadays you kind of need to be able to concentrate on your jumps and where you're moving, and, you know, getting from one, you know, point A to point B with it. Again, I feel like when you mentioned in your youth not being, you know, as into them as you are now, I was falling off stuff all the time as a kid trying to get through one of those 2D games, you know. The control scheme has gotten a lot better. And you mentioned the realism of games. I bet there are a lot of folks out there that would really appreciate today's graphical, you know, prowess being applied to things like 3D Mario or Pokemon, like the Pokemon Pokopia. If they were photorealistic Pokemon jumping out of photorealistic grass, well, I think that was what the donuts. There are people that would pay through the nose to get.
That was so cool about Rift Apart. Like Rift Apart literally looked like a freaking Pixar movie that you were playing. Like that was sick. Yes. And that's something that, like, I mentioned this video back in 2022 or 2021. Like that's what I was praying for in that video. It's just like, I want these AAA cartoony characters. Like I want to see that.
A AAA experience using cutesy, fun, branded characters. Yes, for sure. Yes, Rift Apart, to me, it was first off, it was a phenomenal game. Like the gameplay was fantastic, the level design, the creature design, you know, the story was kind of, you know, Rift Apart, you know, Ratchet and Clank, whatever. But it did go somewhere, and it was just gorgeous. You know, it was and polished, I felt. You could tell that they cared. And if you would apply that same kind of polish and level of care toward maybe even forgotten franchises, maybe even forgotten platformers. You mentioned quite a few earlier, like you know, Conqueror's Bad Day, or you know, just what have you. But bring it into today's
Banjo-Kazooie. You know, we will never get a new Banjo-Kazooie.
That would be a great one.
We will never get it.
All these IPs that could be brought back using today's tech, I think that there's definitely a market for that.
Okay, Jason. So I want to introduce some stakes here, because that's a good point. It's like it'd be lovely to bring these back or whatever, but why don't they? I think that's an interesting question. It's like, why have we not gone to Banjo? Why have we not seen more of these? Like, I would say the peeps that are really acting on it are some indie peeps. I've seen some peeps like, I think it was like Penny's Big Breakaway, Hat in Time. There's been some cool indie developers that are trying to cater to it. And it's interesting because you brought up games that maybe people wouldn't really identify them as like the platformer kind of game we're talking about, like Hollow Knight and Ori. But like, what makes them avoid making a new Banjo? And I do wonder if it's almost the detriment. Like, is it because, like, if it keeps getting ignored, we're talking about, like, I'll introduce a big picture thing here of, the ballooning budgets of video games and how things just, that's metric for success. We just mentioned High Guard earlier. Like, what is the metric for success when Battlefield 6 is the most sold game of 2025, but EA has to lay off some people from Battlefield Studios? And I only bring these up because I wonder, is it potentially less expensive to develop for a game that doesn't have as realistic models and can get away with a bit more cartoony feel? I don't know what the production budget was for Ratchet. Do these games sell well?
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's a big picture. Like, what?
I want to say that I don't know for sure, but I feel as though the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart budget was actually relatively high.
I think so too.
I agree with you, though. It is sort of a hard sell in the fact that, like, oh, it costs $100 million to develop this game. Let's make it about a cute cartoony character that's jumping on lily pads for several hours. Like that, is that going to sell? And ordinarily, in order for it to sell, you do need to have a character that people identify with attached to it. Like, oh, it's the new 3D Mario. Well, of course, people are going to have an interest. It'll sell at least 30 million copies. So they have that locked in, and I understand that. But I would argue that a lot of these platforming type of games, because they are simplified and the control schemes and such are familiar and intuitive, and even kids can play them and such, there's nothing wrong with producing, some lower budgeted options. And I think that that's the reason that a lot of indie studios do like things like platformers and such. And as long as you could do it in a way that differentiates it, which I feel like, Astrobot did, I feel like you've got something pretty strong there that you can really stand out in the industry with something that is simple. Also, in today's day and age, man, I really appreciate games that I can dip in and out of.
Yes.
I'm all for the 120-hour giant experience and DLC and yada yada yada, but I also have like a backlog of other things I want to look at. So I want to dedicate the time to finish your little story, but again, get on the stage, do your dance, and then get off. Got other stuff to do.
Dance. I do remember when I was going through Horizon Forbidden West, I think I was like messaging you about it, and you're like, dude, it was just too much. There was just too much. For me. Yeah. And that game,
look, it can be
to
like
my point,
delicious...
that is like one of the most beautiful games I have ever seen. Like, that's actually like a top 10, maybe even top 5 most gorgeous games I've ever seen. And somehow it's also one of the most huge games I've ever seen too. But it's like, that's why I'm saying it's like, even if platformers maybe don't sell as well, would they potentially be like half as much cost to make? Like Astrobot, they made that. Granted, they had the base game, the playroom to work off of, but that was a team of like 60 people that made that in 3.5 years instead of the 5.5 years for hundreds of million for hundreds of staff. Like, that's why I'm saying it's like, can we just? You might not sell as much, but it doesn't cost as much either. So is that? I'm sure there's more at play there, but yeah.
No, I agree with you. And what's funny about that to me is I look back, again, I'm a little elderly. In my day, we had arcades and such, and those games were pretty cheap to make for the most part. And again, talk about dip in and dip out. You'd put in a quarter, you'd have like maybe 20 to 30 minutes of fun, and then you were done. I feel like you could make several smaller games for the cost of one of these really large AAA titles that each individually, maybe they don't sell gangbusters, but if you add up like 2 or 3 of them out of the 5 or 10 that you try, if they do hit, then that's, you're in just as good a position, if not better. I don't know. I feel like a lot of companies right now just put all of their eggs into small baskets, hoping for the best. and they pull the trigger to just the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars, like your High Guard situation, thinking that they're going to be making $1 billion off of the next Fortnite or something. And no, you can't. There's not enough. There's not enough market out there for as many live service games that these companies are trying to put into the industry. The audience isn't there. So I think they should focus on the smaller, fun for everyone. Nintendo had it right with things like the Wii. Let's all do Wii tennis in our house. The simplification. It's cheap, and make it so that everybody could enjoy it.
There is some. So, okay, I was about to jump ahead, but I want to actually start to land the plane with that one. But so we've mentioned a few. I'm curious, what do you feel in the past, let's say 10 years, as we've transitioned to years where the Game of the Year contender is God of War or Red Dead Redemption 2. That should have gone to Red Dead Redemption 2, but I digress. And the Elden Ring versus Ragnarok and Baldur's Gate 3 win and whatnot. I mentioned at the start, we saw Astrobot and Donkey Kong Bonanza actually be in the Game of the Year nominee contenders. Is there other shout outs? If the past 10 years, we mentioned Rift Apart as well a few times, but I'd say those three we've definitely spent a bit on. But is there any other maybe shout outs besides Rift Apart and Bonanza and Astrobot?
I gotta give some props to Super Mario Odyssey.
I was just thinking it. Right on, Jason.
Okay, so Super Mario Odyssey to me, first off, it was a remarkable celebration of all things Mario. The nostalgia factor on that game was so remarkably high because you're going through the history of Mario, the segments where the wall would turn into a 2D Mario platformer and you'd bop along and the music would change, or just all of the echoes of Mario's past within that game were great. And the singular mechanic of when I first saw the trailer and it's you throw your hat onto the frog and now you are the frog.
Yes.
I was sold. You could turn into the things in the game, other characters and
such a cool mechanic.
That's a great mechanic. And that differentiated that game from other Mario games in the past. I will say, however, arguably, it did lean on the nostalgia factor of Mario and a celebration of Mario so heavily that I don't know if Odyssey stands out in my mind as strongly as having an identity of its own when compared to some of the other past 3D Marios. But for me, Super Mario Odyssey is definitely high up in the conversation. It was great.
Which was another I was listing Game of the Year contenders. Odyssey was definitely. That was in 2017. The debate that year was Nintendo had it between Breath of the Wild or Odyssey, and and I was I totally understand either. I personally was the team Breath of the Wild, but I totally understood either for sure. And
I know Breath of the Wild was a port from the Wii U onto the Switch, but I felt that between that title, Breath of the Wild, debuting on the Switch, and then Super Mario Odyssey, that twofer within the first year, and so I was expecting that actually with the Switch too. I was hopeful that there was going to be two big games released that you could kind of ping pong between. And I'm, other than Pokemon Pocopia, which I don't think was their intention, I'm still waiting.
I still think the front half of Switch 2's first year was great, but it's the back half that I'm kind of in question about. But
sure.
I mean, admittedly, we already mentioned this earlier, but I definitely. I kind of want to bring up Psychonauts 2 again for a moment because I feel we're talking about how, because I agree, I would love to see the AAA budget and everything, but I do like Psychonauts 2 because even if they are this sort of art style that isn't, it was done with Unreal 4 and it didn't look like, anything crazy, but I still liked, this is what I'm talking about, is I liked that we could have a game like this that had such an absolutely Tim Burton cartoony, whatever you want to call it, style that just made it feel unique. It really made the designs of the world and everything stand out. It felt like it was its own and it had an identity. And not to mention all the different mines you would go into, that the level design of that game was so freaking cool. I just thought it was a really, I just wanted more like it. I want obviously I wanted to have that Rift Apart level of graphics, but I just thought everything else I didn't really need it. And that's what I really want to encourage. Is like, you don't need to have super duper Omega graphics. And that's what Psychonauts 2 showed me. And plus Double Fine, man, they're one of the most quirky developers you will ever see. like they're just so, they don't care what they make. Like they really will.
Quirky is a good word. Yes.
We're gonna release a game about walking as a lighthouse and where you smash each other as pots.
Makes sense. I'm sure that'll sell. Yeah. No, I agree with you in the level design and the world design. I think that, delving into some of the mature themes and such that game did, I don't know how broadly, it could be adopted by folks is the only issue for me. But yeah, it was definitely well made. I think, I would, if I were, to wave my magic wand, if I were a CEO in control of one of these companies, my focus would definitely be on the, I don't want to say more immature, but it's something that everybody can identify with and pick up and play. I would want to make sure that it was universal and not, dumbed down, not like so cartoony. Nintendo just showed off the trailer for the Yoshi game, and although some of the mechanics and the gameplay and stuff looked really fun, I would argue that feels a little more kiddie than some of their other platformers and such. So I would definitely want to make it something that adults could also enjoy. But I think that there's a sweet spot there that I would definitely want to push toward.
I want to shout out just one other because I look for an excuse to ever mention this game because it kind of throws you off, Jason, because you mentioned, because I get it, a lot of these most iconic ones, they are solo ventures and whatnot. But yeah, I also do enjoy the multiplayer ones, and something that emerged during this whole era that people were trying to chase. I would say it's when it started, the ball was rolling on these live service things. It was like maybe a year or two after Battle Royales, dude. I love Fall Guys. Like I love Fall Guys so freaking much, dude. And but that's a prime example of what I'm saying. It's like that's a multiplayer one that isn't a shooter or anything. It is absolutely, I would classify it as a battle royale type game, but it's like a battle royale meets Mario Party. And I like that. And the beans are so simple, and that's kind of what made them identifiable. And the concept of the game, like, yeah, this isn't a single player adventure that makes you an iconic character, which is admittedly, that's kind of a backbone to this. But I also don't mind doing stuff like this, where let's just make simple bean-like characters or whatever, and we'll make we can make a multiplayer platformer out of that. And I don't know, like Fall Guys is one of the freshest things I've seen in a long time. That it's not maybe quite what we're getting at, but I just like the opportunity to shout it out because I do think it was like just a cool. Oh yeah, it is a 3D platformer. It is absolutely a 3D platformer because that's all you do. And in terms of pick up and play, there's 3 buttons. There's 3 buttons you use in that game. It's just how you use the buttons that makes it
very
hard,
simple. So. Yeah, but it does have an impact. So yeah, I think you're right. Tell me, what is it about it that that appeals to you? Is it the mechanics? Is it the gameplay? Is it the camaraderie of sharing it with buddies? Like, what is it that's why does it work? I
definitely like. Okay, if I just limit it to 3 things. 1, I am a sucker for the game show mechanic or the game show aesthetic. I'm a sucker for the game show aesthetic. It's why I love the finals. I love like when you're in a game show. Yeah. So there's that. 2, I think, as we mentioned, something kind of cool about 3D platformers is that they're usually a bit more easy to pick up and play. Now, there can be some challenging gauntlets that you'll go through. Absolutely. That absolutely could be a thing. There was something recent memory that I can't remember that I was like, you got to be kidding me. But I think Super Meat Boy is a good example. But but I feel like Fall Guys, that challenge, that 3D platforming challenge, I kind of like that it was a multiplayer because I am a multiplayer guy. And so I felt like instead of just me not being able to do this, now I'm like, oh, I got to do this before these guys do. Like it kind of like created a new motivation. And then 3, I will say the simplicity of it. Like this, I do like games that sometimes I do want to be able to use all the buttons, but I liked this was a game that I felt like I could just recommend to anybody, and they might not love it, but they could at least understand it. They could at least play it and pick it up the idea pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I just love that idea of like literally my birthday is about to happen as we record this, and I'm like, hey, let's just have everybody hop on Fall Guys.
Well, throw me an invite and I'll try it out. I know that you're in love with it. It reminds me, actually, what you were saying. It reminds me a little bit of what I was thinking with Astrobot when I first played Astrobot, and there is a simplicity to it. I think in some of these platformers, when they're really well designed, they're so intuitive. They borrow from other games, obviously, but like it feels good to play. And it's not so complicated that, my kid was figuring out while he was playing it how to engage the different, abilities and such. I'm going to rocket up with my little water rockets or whatnot. He knew which buttons were which within seconds. And so that's really, really great game design. And the other thing that, I appreciate with a game like Astrobot was the skill level was such that just about anybody could make it across a platform. They can make the jumps. They can get on top of the thing and get those goals. But they were cognizant enough to also tweak it a bit so that as you progressed, it got harder along the way. And there were challenging levels at the back end of that game where I literally had to do a run like 20, 30 times to try and get, to the goal at the end. To the point where, like, when I did finally pull it off, talk about like Elden Ring or something. I beat the boss, and I'm taking screenshots, man. Like I made Astrobot made it, man, and I did it. Just really great feelings of accomplishment based on something as cheesy as finishing those little levels.
I love Astrobot so much, dude. Like you can't see it, but I have like footage of a trailer rolled for it. I'm just like reminded of the mouse, which we only got like once or twice, unfortunately, or like the levels would just shift inside. Like, God, that game is so good.
All the pleasant surprises, just how well designed it was, and
fresh, constantly fresh.
Constantly fresh. Just the gameplay was constantly engaging and evolving as you went through it, and that's that's great.
Yeah. So, and I didn't write this, but do you think, like, I guess straightforward, this doesn't even have to be an expository answer, but just like, is Game of the Year enough really to help these guys? Because I feel like we've gotten that somewhat, Mario Odyssey in 2017, Rift Apart and Psychonauts in 2021, Astrobot in 2024, which actually won, and Bonanza last year. And I really was hoping that would be enough, man, to convince people of this, but I'm just not so sure anymore. But at
the time, the success of Astrobot, to me, it was like, okay, well, we're about to see like 10 clones of this. Everybody's going to be doing this now. And you're right. I haven't really seen a ton of these kinds of games come out. And it's potentially because of the marketplace that we're in right now and the way of the world and how things are evolving in the industry right now, all these layoffs and all this craziness. And development of these things obviously takes some time. So I'm not sure, because arguably I kind of feel that, a platformer is something that, I know any game is difficult to develop for, but I feel like a platformer is something simple enough that you should be able to pull off on a reasonable budget. And I would like to see more options. It may be intimidation. Nintendo, they have figured it out. One of the reasons why Astrobot stood out so well was because it was quality-wise pretty much on par with a Nintendo-style release. And that was surprising. And seeing that on Sony, a Sony platform, it was like, Sony could get into this game too. There were games that Xbox had released in the past that I felt maybe didn't rise to the level of a Nintendo product, platformer wise, but were also really fun and were really engaging experiences. And just like we were discussing earlier, some of those earlier IP characters might be something that if they own them, they own everything. Might as well dig them out. Put a 3D polish on them, put some realistic textures, and see what people think.
Asha, Matt, if you're listening, heads of Xbox. And actually, that's kind of perfect because, like, so I do want to give some hope, though. I don't want to just make it, because I do think there is hope. I just don't know how much it's going to be fleshed out. And I do hope that in years to come we do see. I'm sure we're not going to get anywhere near as much of like a huge renaissance, but I just would love to see, like, wow, we're actually getting a lot of kind of big. That's what I want is the big players. Because I know we got AA and indie peeps trying, but I want to see the big players try to go for it. And I do have some shout outs. Like I know Toys for Bob. They are a very notable studio because they're ones that when they were under Activision, yeah, they were part of the COD machine, but they were ones that were like, they literally would release a remake or a new game for Spyro or Crash every literally 3 years. And I was like, that's awesome. That's really cool, especially in this day and age. And they've been working on, so they literally, once Microsoft bought Activision, I'm glad they didn't shut down the studio. And this is what I wish they would do with all the studios, where it's like, hey, you're going to lose a lot of your staff and the place that you guys worked, but you're going to keep your studio and everything. So, and you're going to be able to make the type of games you actually want to make now instead of being part of the machine. I'm like, how come this couldn't happen to all of them? But anyway, but I do bring them up because, yeah, they're working on something that was actually part of the deal too. It's like, but your first game has to be with us. And I'm assuming a lot of people are saying that's Spyro 4. We'll wait and see. There's even some rumors that they're working on 2 different ones for Microsoft. I'm like, get out of town. No way. That'd be cool if it's just both a Crash and a Spyro game. I really hope that my highest of high hopes is that Banjo-Kazooie, just something. Just give us something, Xbox. Just get some partner studio.
Nintendo released an amiibo, and I was thinking, oh, okay.
Dude.
You know, I'm like, is this a hint of things to come?
I will say, Toys for Bob, they literally, I've actually said on the record, because they were in an interview, and it's just like, so, like, what do you hope to do in the future or whatever after you wrap up this project? They're like, well, we won't say directly, but just hopefully someday we can work on a certain thing that involves a bird and a bear. I'm like, shut up! Shut up!
Don't tease us.
You can't do that. And it's like, who knows when the hell that would even be, even if they did, but like, yeah.
Later in 2035.
But the big one, dude, I really hope to see, in fact, I might even just let you see this, is, do you know the name Bradley the Badger? Does that sound familiar to you at all?
I don't know if I do.
Bradley the Badger. It was shown at the Game Awards this year.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I'm remembering now.
It looks so like, I don't know. I feel like it could be terrible, but I really hope it's good.
I remember seeing this now, and yeah, it caught me off guard because I'm like, what the heck is this? Yeah, it could be cool.
That's kind of what I'm saying, though, man. It's just like, give us a neat little character that seems to have some kind of an identity. But this one is just straight up like, let's just make fun of everything. Like I play the trailer, and it's like, here's Demon Souls, here's Last of Us, here's Hogwarts.
It was incorporating a lot of ideas in there. Yeah. And it looks great. I mean, the animation and the style and such is pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'll play it.
So there is like hope, and I just hope that there's more. That's all I want. I want the big players. That's the main thing. I just want the big players.
I feel like we're about to eventually enjoy whatever the next 3D Mario is. I think that's around the corner. I can't imagine that it's going to be too much longer on that. But
just people other than Nintendo, because that's the thing. I feel like Nintendo is the only big publisher that really messes with this. That's how I feel. Like,
well, they're the 800-pound gorilla. Little Donkey Kong for you. But yeah, I feel like, yes, they are the big player in the market with regard to this kind of product. But again, I feel like Sony proved it with Astrobot that, others can enter the space and be successful. And I'm sure that we'll probably see more of Astrobot. I think that's coming. I would suggest that we're probably a couple years away from that. But after the Game Awards, after it won, I felt like we were going to see a lot of clones on the market, and that hasn't really happened. So I'm not sure
we'll see
where they're at, but I think that they're coming.
Yeah, we're 2 years away, so hopefully, we'll see. My question to everybody listening is, what would be your call to action to the publishers? Or what question would you want to ask them? Like, what stops them from diving into 3D platformers? Is it something we said? Is it something we didn't say? And what would you really want them to do or propose to them? Like, just if you could send a message to publishers out there, what would the message be that is rational or irrational? I don't know. But I don't know. I've shared my piece on that. Just give me a Banjo game. and explain to me why you guys don't do this. But I don't know if you got a quick comment about that, but that's pretty much that. But
Oh yeah, no, fair enough. I want to ask them myself. I mean,
yeah,
to sit down with some of these folks and pick their brains would be an amazing experience, and I'm sure eventually that'll happen on the program. We'll see.
So, Jason, I have a thing that, as we approach the top of the hour, I would like to propose to you. This is not necessarily a challenge. This is something I want to see. It's sort of a live reaction I want both of us to do. Because we both know that Nintendo, as you mentioned, like, well, Nintendo's the 800-pound gorilla, whatever. So Nintendo is, even the Astrobot speech, it's just like, oh, we can't say their name, but you know who you are.
Right.
So I'm curious if we could just react to, I don't know if you've heard of the channel, WatchMojo.
No.
Really? Oh, man, This is going to be interesting.
I have not.
So WatchMojo is a channel that their basis has been to rank things. And I'm curious to react with you to this list that you'll have to open the stream for of either or the 10, let's do the Nintendo one, the 10 best Nintendo platformers.
All right.
And they did this a month ago, so it's pretty fresh. So I'm curious, what do you think? And I know you don't know the channel, but just know they do kind of get a feel for things and whatnot. But like, just off the cuff, what do you think like would be the top 3 or anything that like should not be off of here? That maybe Odyssey, obvious, or
well, again, Odyssey, I just didn't really feel like it had its own identity on its own.
Fair. 64 has to be on here. 64 has to.
That would have to be. I see already. You got it queued up. The Super Mario Galaxy is at least.
This is just an intro. Like they're just going to introduce it. Yeah. So
I think Galaxy is also probably on my list. But yeah, I guess we'll see what they have to say.
I wonder if Bonanza is too new, too recent, but I feel like that could be.
Yeah, if I were to try and include it, it would definitely be a recency bias kind of a situation for me.
Kirby and the Forgotten Lands. I'm sorry, you're not making it onto this list, but I love you. I'm trying to think like GameCube. GameCube, was there a super duper Sunshine? I don't feel like Sunshine gets on this.
You know, I have affection for Super Mario Sunshine, but it is not in my top 10.
Okay, here's a good last question. What do you think is the rate? Okay, here's my bet. Here's our competitive aspect. Over or under is 5 entries on the. Is it 5 or less entries on this list that are Mario games? So basically, are you betting? Are you betting it's going to be 6 and above or 5 or less? No, sorry. 6 or above or 4 or less. How about that? 6 or above or 4 or less.
Wow. You know, I'm going to go with 4 or less, and the reason why is because I feel like they're wanting to, differentiate their list. So I'm going to say they don't go above 4 Marios.
Okay, just to make this spicy, I'll say 6. I'll say 6 or more, which is really risky. I think I have the harder option. So
you did take the harder option, I feel.
So we'll see. So does Jason's 4 or less or 6 or more? Who wins it? Let's see. I'm just gonna get to this. Before we begin, we publish new videos all week long. This might be pretty quiet. Can you hear it?
I think just barely.
I think we don't need to necessarily hear it. We'll just react.
Yeah. Okay, Super Mario 3D World.
Number 10 is Super Mario 3D World.
That's one Mario already.
I'm okay with this.
It was great. It is a great game. It was better than I expected it to be.
You and
I've turned this up fairly. Did that just go way up for you or no?
Each with its own
I can definitely hear it now.
Okay, yeah. I did a thing on my Google thing that made it louder. So yeah, number 10 was 3D World. I'm personally understanding of that, but of all time, well, it is. Here's a key thing: it's 3D. That's the thing. The 10 best Nintendo 3D platformers. So that's something interesting to think about. So I get it. Okay, I regret my choice of 6 or more.
I don't know. There's a lot of Mario 3D platformer products.
There will be number 9.
right. The cat suit. Cat Mario.
Wario World.
Wario World.
Mario World.
That's crazy. That's
wow.
crazy.
I did
Number
not
9.
expect Wario World on there. Okay, number 9.
I am not familiar with it at all. I'm just a somewhat just by name.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a nostalgia factor situation for one of the editors because I don't know.
I do think 64 takes this over.
64 has to be on the list, if not number 1, honestly. Only because, again, between that and Ocarina of Time on the Zelda side of things, that's what really brought gaming into the 3D space.
Does Wario count as a Mario title? I would say no.
That's a good point. Well,
it's a debate. I understand. I understand either way, but
he's evil Mario, right? So
yeah. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Again, doesn't count. Oh man.
I might have to give it to you and let you win this bet because they're all Mario related. They're in the wheelhouse. They are Mario World characters.
Here's what's going to happen. There's going to be 6 Mario franchise games and 4 Mario games.
We'll both kind of quote unquote win without meaning to. Yeah. No,
I've always wanted to play Captain Toad. I've always wanted to. Yeah.
Have you not done it? I think you would dig it. What's kind of fun is the you can't really like fully appreciate the little world that you're on without like spinning it around like they're showing you here, and you got to figure out. Each one's like a little puzzle, and they're fun. What makes it kind of weird is you can't jump. Like ordinarily in a platformer, you'd be thinking that little Toad would like jump around, but you have to wait.
And that's the tricky part about it is because you have to navigate it with that. Yeah,
you got to figure out the environment and how to get to these things. Yeah.
Number 7.
Super Mario Odyssey.
Okay.
There it is.
A little low on the list, but it's got to be on there. Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be on there, no question. I do admit, if it's 3D platformers, I would say maybe 4 or 5. I feel like it depends. It depends on what you're putting it there for. Is like, are you doing iconic or are you doing overall quality? Like, yeah.
I feel like the game was remarkably polished and was huge, in its scope. It had a lot going on. I think I'm happy with it here. I think it would be in my list. If I were to do one, it would probably be a little higher, but not at the tippity top.
For sure had to be on though. For sure. Yeah, no question.
Sure.
Then that's 2 Mario games, Jason. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands!
You win. Look at that.
Kirby and the Forgotten Lands!
Made the list and it even beats Odyssey? Wow.
That's okay. Right. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's absolutely incorrect.
I was comfortable with the list until I'm like,
I love Kirby and the Forgotten Lands. It is not above Super Mario Odyssey. No question.
That's interesting to me. Yeah.
I have no idea what's remaining on this list, but I do love this game. It should have been like maybe 8 or 9, but I would not have put it above Odyssey. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts, honestly, but
it's stupid easy too. That's the biggest flaw. All right. Well,
Chibi Robo.
Yeah, you kind of just go through the motions. Oh wow.
Chibi Robo plug into adventure. I don't know this one.
I don't even know this game.
Oh, I recognize the character though. Yeah, again, iconic characters. We're talking about iconic characters. This robot dude, whatever. Yeah, Chibi Robo.
Yeah, I don't know about this. Where's my Ratchet and Clank, man? We're getting up towards.
Well, remember, this is Nintendo.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I wanted to find an all-timer platformer, and maybe there actually is one that I should have grabbed, but I think this was also shorter. So, but
for sure.
I don't know.
Okay.
Shout out Chibi Robo.
Of Nintendo games.
Robo in the world. Just make sure
Chibi Robo over Odyssey. There's gonna be
so
stuff
Robo over your Kirby though.
I don't know. I
can't
vouch.
Now I'm confused.
Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Okay, here we go.
Donkey Kong Bonanza.
And this is number
5. So they're saying a bold statement. Above Odyssey.
They're putting this above Odyssey.
That's fascinating.
That actually is kind of a hard call for me. This game to me, it felt really refreshing. It felt new. It was interesting. I really liked the destructible environments. and the fact that like everywhere you turned was
Yes.
discovery and fun.
Yes.
And just it was joyous. It was a joyous experience. I just had fun the whole time. I was charmed the whole time. Smile on my face the whole time.
There's a whole debate. I've actually shot this, but I haven't put it together. Like, I love the topic of Odyssey versus Bonanza because it's literally by the same team and two Nintendo mascots. But
Galaxy.
Super Mario Galaxy.
There's Galaxy. All right, so
You
we're
know,
up to
I understand. However,
3 Marios.
do they put? You're right, 3 Marios. 5 in the franchise, though.
Yeah.
Do they put both Galaxy 1 and 2? Because I have heard Galaxy 2 is notoriously better than 1. That's what I've heard, at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, Galaxy was just so innovative to see how they creatively designed these little planetoids for you to go around on, you know, and some of those ideas have been carried over into more recent 3D Mario gameplay. And it felt great to play. It was very fun, and even as odd as it was very intuitive. Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say, yeah.
You stopped it, but I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Banjo-Kazooie would be the next, but
Banjo-Kazooie definitely needs to be on the list.
it needs to be on the list, but number 3.
I don't know if it's this high for me, but yeah.
That's crazy. That's pretty crazy. I do think it needed to be on, though, because again, we talk about the 64 defining, like 64 was probably was actually the founding of 3D platformers, basically.
And Rare's heyday too. This was
Oh yeah, Rare. Yep. I don't know. We haven't seen 64. 64 is going to be number 1.
It has to be number 1. I mean, that's
It
where
has
I would
to be
put
number
it.
1. If you're gonna put the Chibi Robo and Banjo-Kazooie over Odyssey, they're gonna put 64 at number 1.
If they don't, it's almost like they have to now to make up for that.
Yeah. But shout out to Banjo-Kazooie, good job.
And lastly,
sure.
Super Mario 64.
Wait, lastly, I wasn't counting.
Okay.
I guess there
That is
has been
number
10.
1. Okay, so Banjo-Kazooie 2, and then Mario 64 number 1.
Wow. Which I would argue
mean,
those are the two like 64 3D platformer games for sure.
Oh, for sure. And the Nintendo 64 was the 3D console. So
Yep.
I mean, PlayStation ate its lunch, but this was, you know.
So they're going with a more The Godfather's the best movie of all time instead of the like they're going with the more iconic legendary thing, to which fair enough. But that was,
I think, because again, just the remarkable fact that the developers sat around and had to think through coding for this. How do you negotiate a 3-dimensional space with a character that everybody knows and loves and keep them the character?
Yeah.
Keep them visually the same, quote unquote, and then figure out how the control of the character works on a controller. Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
I thought they did a phenomenal job. And again, we're still utilizing that gameplay
Today. Absolutely.
In everything.
Today.
All of your realistic stuff moving, Arthur Morgan around, it all comes from them figuring out how to move Mario around. So there it is.
Our game, it looks like there was 4 Mario games. But there was listen, Jason, there was exactly 6 franchise games.
There were 6 Mario franchise games and 4 Mario games.
I was spot on. Freaking
win.
Spot on. I said that.
Winners.
So we're both winners in a sense, but by the most technical terms, I will say you got that. But
that's too funny.
But yeah, no, cool list, pretty ballsy, putting stuff above.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with me. I feel like my list would be different, but everybody's opinions are valid.
Yeah, but yes, everybody, that has been our conversation about 3D platformers and iconic cartoony characters. Will we ever get them back? What would you tell a publisher? And so on. Jason, thank you very much. Any final thoughts or plugins? I forgot also plugins.
Tony, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I hope to see you again sometime. And if folks want to ask me questions or chat with me or whatnot, you can find me at JTS Studios is my handle on my socials. So at JTS Studios.
Is that just like every platform, or I'm going to try to link it too. I'm going to have it linked in the description, but
yeah, no, that's pretty much what it is everywhere.
Okay. Everywhere.
Well,
folks, everywhere. All right, folks, let us know what you think about this whole debate and what you would have added to it. And if you what do you thought of Jason and I here? Because I'd love to have him back. Jason, it's been great to have you on, and everybody have a Geek Pride awesome time. Thank you for joining us.